Well, I'd like to start the show with our segment on O-scale modeling. And this is sponsored by O-scale Central Organization. And if we could run that video, please.
I'm David Vaughn of O-scale Central. O-scale 2-rail, models built to 1:48 scale and running on 2-rail track, is the best kept secret in model railroading. We're pleased to team with Jim Kello to introduce O-scale 2-rail to NewTrack's viewers. O-scale 2-rail is for modelers. At twice the scale and 8 times the mass of HO, O-scale's heft and ease of modeling create an outstanding model railroading experience. O-scale 2-rail modeling is as varied as railroading itself. Modern era, transition or old time, standard gauge or narrow. A wide variety of models is available at affordable prices. There is a supportive community and lots of shows, clubs, and events. You can explore O-scale 2-rail by going to our website, oscalecentral.com. You will find information about the scale and how to get started, as well as a free, searchable, scale-wide product and service guide and listings of coming O-scale events. You will also find information about how to join O-scale Central. We promote O-scale 2-rail and support modelers in the scale. When your eyes are going bifocular, when you need fresh challenges, keep O-scale 2-rail in mind. Check us out, oscalecentral.com. Thanks.
Well, now I want to turn to the host for this segment of our show, David Schultz. David, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here, so if my internet cuts out and I disappear, you'll kind of know what happened. But anyway, today we're going to talk about details. Now, I know that you can detail almost any model in any scale. I chose O-scale because you can just see the detail without using a jeweler's loupe.
David, I can't see your video. Maybe it's only me. I don't know. But I got you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, you're having network issues. You have low bandwidth, so it may be on your end.
Okay.
Well, could have been my end too. Like I say, I'm in the middle of a hailstorm. So anyway, we're going to talk about detail. When I was young and fooling with my Lionel train set, the one thing that always kind of bothered me about Lionel was the lack of detail. And I was, even at a young age, I was crazy. And you can talk to my mother about me bringing in potting soil and dumping it over my rails to put down some ballast. And she wasn't very happy with me when she had to clean up that mess. But I took one of my Lionel boxers one time and I pulled the trucks off it and I set it on the ground. And I started detailing it. I put electrical box on. And of course, I was just using whatever I had laying around the house. So I think I used a thumbtack for the electrical meter and a piece of wood doweling for the telephone pole. But anyway, I got the bug early in detailing. So anyway, I'll get set up here because I'm old fashioned. So I have to do it the old fashioned way here to get set up for my photos. So, but I know you can detail in other scales. That's never been an issue, but I like the size of this because you can see stuff in my world so much easier than, like I say, having to put on glasses and stuff. But like I say, I know that there are people out there who do some pretty amazing stuff. So anyway, waiting for this. This is what I mean by you can detail in almost any scale, because here is a grain of rice carved into the Statue of Liberty inside the eye of a needle. But, you're not just going to see that with the naked eye, but this is how small people can get. And, I went on a website looking up small carvings, and it is unbelievable what some people have done. So anyway, we'll start this little show with one of my favorite cabooses that I built. This was an old Ambroid kit. And of course, the kit itself came with the wrong style of railings and such. The NP had kind of unique angle iron railings and such. So I built all the railings and stuff and put the brake wheel there, the chain, so they could uncouple the caboose. When they had helpers, they just step out the door and they could turn the plug and lift the coupler and then wave the engineer down and they'd cut away and the train would continue on its way. So this is looking down at the roof, and you can make a real nice tar paper roof using paper tape and some paint and such. But then you open up the top and we can look down inside the car, and we can see that the bunks are in place there. There's plates and cups on the table. Apparently lunch is ready, and it looks like today we're going to be having eggs and coffee. And I modeled a fry pan on top of the coal stove, and I was able to put eggs in that pan. It's just a couple drops of white paint, and then I took a needle with little yellow, and I put little yellow dots in the middle of it. And but this is the kind of stuff I really enjoy. It's just getting this really fine detail in there. Here is my dining car with flowers on the table, and that was rather an interesting build. I carved all those vases out of clear plastic rod. I think I used my lathe for that, and then I would drill a hole in them, and then I stuck these model flowers in the tables. And more little detail. It's hard to see in this, but that little rack off to the left of the sinks is the rack that holds all the knives. I actually made knives out of brass wire. I'd hammer it flat and then file it down to make knife blades out of them, and then painted the handles brown. And you can see the sinks got the faucet there and some of the plumbing, and the freezer's off to the left. Once again, I love building detail into my models. Here's the lounge portion, which is kind of nice. I got ashtrays there. I even have some cigarette ashes in the bottom of the ashtrays, along with all the chairs. This was an attempt to using flock on the chairs. I'm not 100% happy with it, but until I find something better, we'll just go with that at the moment. The carpet on there is printed on a computer printer. My son, Michael, likes to look up different floorings for me for old cars and shrink it down and make paper printout flooring for me. And here's once again looking at the tables and chairs, the flowers on the tables, and then the picture on the wall there. My wife's great grandfather or uncle, great uncle, I think it was. He was a painter, and he painted a picture of Mount St. Helens, and I found that picture online under his site that they dedicated to his artistry. And so I printed that off, and once again, my son Michael, who's the computer guy in the world, he shrunk that down to O scale. I built a little frame around it and hung it on the wall. So that's where the Mount St. Helens picture, since it's a Great Northern car, naturally it'd have Mount St. Helens on it. And then looking the other way, of course, we got the empire builder himself and his son. This is kind of a famous picture. There was a picture of a wheat stalk between the two of them that was taller than they were. And I cut the picture in half and once again just kind of framed it and mounted it on the walls. And I figured that'd be appropriate in the diner. They'd want to show that off. But, and once again, another parlor, chairs, ashtrays, different kind of flooring on there. And I love trying to get smaller and smaller with the details. I had one time I was going to use fiber optics to make cigarettes sticking out of the ashtrays, but I don't have any people in my cars yet, and I've got to learn how to paint people before I can start that. I'm not 100% satisfied with how I paint figures yet, so I'm going to keep working on that until I get to that point. And then it'd be kind of fun if a guy could have like wisps of smoke coming out of the ashtray too, but that might be getting a little crazy. Here's a little triple combine I made. When I went to Denver, I entered the Mount Hood, which is another SP&S passenger car, and I didn't put any toilet paper or paper towel holders in my bathrooms. Well, the gentleman that beat me had toilet paper and paper towel holders, and now that's kind of a standard addition to my passenger car building now. Is I've got to have little toilet paper rolls on the walls and the paper towel dispenser along with the sink and the toilet. So it just made me bring it up a little more until I enter another contest and some guy beats me with something even finer. It's just kind of a competition to try and keep ahead of the curve. 3D printing is going to be a real challenge because you're going to be able to do stuff like this. And the only part about 3D printing I'm not happy with is that the creativity is going to kind of disappear, because if you can just 3D print this bathroom and stick it in there, I mean, it took a bit to build those toilet paper rolls. It was fun, and it's nice to brag and such, but the 3D printing And this is the only negative part I find about it. I think it's going to be fantastic in the future, but it's the scratch building part of it that I feel is really going to be hurt by 3D printing eventually. And maybe it needs to go. I don't know. But this is the part of the hobby I really enjoy. Here is a little roomette sleeper that I made. And I have curtains on the walls. I've got the rods there. This was a real show of a severe behavioral disorder when you go through this much work to put curtains and curtain rods on the wall. Now I think I'm just going to print them and decal them on the walls. I'm not going to go through this trouble. But anyway, you can see in there, in a couple of the rooms, I had the beds down. And then in one of my poorer efforts, I put a guy in bed in one of the rooms. So when people look in there, they can see how the bedrooms looked when the bed was down. So that was another car that I won first place in. I originally had a guy in the bathroom there, and I strategically placed a curving brass wire from his midsection down into the toilet. And some people thought that was funny, and other people were a little bit appalled, so I removed him. This is my RPO that I made. The Northern Pacific had an RPO dormitory section. The RPO section was 30 feet, and the dormitory was the other 60 feet of the car. The flooring in this turned out so spectacular. It was total accident. I glued the floor down using JB Weld. And as I would stick the boards down to the floor, the JB Weld would ooze up between the boards. Well, of course, in my panic, I couldn't get in there quick enough to get it wiped out. And when I did, it left gray streaks on the floor. But when I was finished, it actually looked like an older floor with graying timbers from the wear marks and such. So it actually was a nice little touch. Once again, the pigeonholes is another sign of a severe behavioral disorder. I took a little brass square and I soldered all of that together, and then I machined it off and glued the whole thing together into the RPO section. So there's like 200 pigeonholes in that whole thing there. And then the letters that are on the table, once again, my son Michael found a website for RPO stamps. Well, he was able to take a lot of those letters and shrink them down into O-scale size. And what's really bizarre about that printer is if you looked at those letters through a jeweler's loupe or even a microscope, you can read the addresses on there. I don't know how the printer can do that, but that was pretty spectacular. But the tables are covered with letters along with a few letters on the pigeonhole there. And the two mail sacks in the corner were made using the foil packs out of the cigarettes. Marlboro hard packs have that silver foil inside there. And I flip that inside out and I'll shape it into mail sacks. I can make antimacassars out of it. I use it for all kinds of things, but really handy stuff. It's a nice texture on it. Works really well for, like I say, mail sacks. And I think even the mail bags themselves are made from that same paper. Here's the dormitory section. I put pillows in there. The showers, of course, have got mirrors on the wall, which was just plastic with some of that metal foil put over the top of it. So you get a nice shine on that, nice reflection in there. The pillows I made, and I covered those with that same foil paper. The checkerboard flooring is just, once again, computer printed and glued in the bottom. This is another diner. You can see the coffee pot or the urn, and got the sinks. You got the bread warmers, you got the dishwashers, and you get the little coal bin there, because in this car, the stove was still coal fired. The wood flooring is printed flooring. That's put it down there. And then, of course, all the refrigerators and such are there. So once again, I love, this is my son's car, actually. We have a bit of a competition trying to outdo each other on detail. And I put my dining car against his in Chicago, and he beat me by 1 point. And they wrote up that the only thing missing in his car was the smell of bacon coming from the kitchen. But you know, we're gonna do a challenge this next year, so we'll see who's got the best detail this next year. This was the part of his dining car. He used microscope slides to make those partitions, and then he glued those little Hiawatha emblems, which are actually supposed to go on the outside of the car, but he glued those in there, put in some of that clear red. I think it's Tamiya's got the clear colors. Put that in there. And I said that this is what beat me, is that his partition was so much nicer than mine. But you can see the chairs and the tables with the silverware on the table. A lot of fun. But detail isn't just for passenger cars, freight cars. It also ends up on O-scale track. You can get some fantastic detail. There's some stuff available, like all of these adjustable plates on here. James and I both put 4 spikes per tie, and angle bars. We'll take sectional track and we'll cut it into 39-foot sections, and we'll put the angle bars in there just to make it look like jointed rail all the way. The little switch stands are kind of a new outfit. I can't remember the name of the company that makes those, but they're really fantastic. They've got a LED inside of them. Then they make a little circuit board that makes the light flicker if you want to have kerosene lamps, or steady if you want to have electric lamps. And that's quite the detail when you get that hooked up. But here, another view of the adjustable plates, the slide plate, insulated in the middle. And you actually have to glue some kind of insulator in there because it's all brass. And if you solder that together and put it on your track and you short out, although the dead rail people will probably enjoy that. But then when you ballast this all up, you end up with this kind of a setup. And we've had people come over to the layouts and just stand and stare at the turnouts. They're just absolutely blown away at the level of detail on this. And this is what I really enjoy about O-scale, is that you can do things like this, and it just, if you have a small layout, it kind of pays to really pay attention to the fine detail. So this is I was telling you about how cutting all the rail. You don't cut all the way through. We just cut the ball of the rail, and then we'll glue the tie plates in place. So it gives the simulation of jointed rail. But this is my son James's layout again, and the Milwaukee Road out in Montana used gravel for the most part. Stony gravel was their ballast back in the day. So he was able to take some of the ballast. He mixed some clay, some dirt, whatever else he could find. He mixed it all together and put it on there. And I thought it turned out really well, really well. This is the end of one of his cars showing the angle cock and the glad hand. He hasn't got them painted yet, but it stood out pretty well. So I asked him for a photo of that. So I've got some cars where I've actually found magnets small enough. I'll put them in the glad hands. And I know there was an article in a magazine. That's where I got the idea from. And the hoses are what they call larva lace, which is used in making for fly fishing. Really flexible tubing. And you can put a little magnet in that glad hand. And when the cars come together, the hoses will actually attach. And when you detach, the hoses will actually hang on and pop apart just like the real thing. It's kind of fun. And then this is just more of the same, turnouts, spikes, jointed rail, some of the cars and such. And my last photo is my grain elevator. This is a Lionel grain elevator, and I actually put in all of the wood beams, all the woodwork. I've got lights in there. I've got the lift in front of you there. That's what the chains are. In the old-fashioned days, tractors used to bring in flare boxes. Well, they didn't have a hydraulic dump on them, so they'd roll them onto this plate, and then there was a winch that would lift the one end of the flare box up so they could dump it into the pit. But I've got the leg in there. If you take the top off of this grain elevator, you can see the top of the leg with all the different spouts going to the different bins. And so this is the kind of stuff I enjoy, just minute little detail. So that's my story on detailing. It could go on forever because I just touched on freight cars, passenger cars, and some of the track, but never even looked at the locomotives. But we'll keep it at that for now.
David, I'll tell you, it's absolutely beautiful. Anybody have any questions for David? David, thank you so very much. I agree with you on scratch building. I hope we never lose it because that's a part of the hobby that I love.
Yeah, it's the part that I truly love. I love taking things that you wouldn't even think about and turn it into.
Thank you so much for your help.
Yep, you're welcome.